I cannot believe that we have been on Airbnb for 6 months now. My husband and I put a house on Airbnb back in December of 2022, and it's been, 6 months of a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but this is a 6-month update on everything that we have learned and everything that we've earned. My husband and I own a little 3-bed, 2-bath beach bungalow right outside of Tampa, Florida. If you've been watching the channel, I've been doing monthly update, and I did a monthly update December, January, February, March, where I broke down a detailed list of all of our expenses. So if you want to see like a line item by line item, go back and watch those videos. This is going to be a much more quick rundown since we are going through 6 months. And as I put out those videos, I got some really great comments, and I know that we've had a lot of kind of larger capital expenses that you wouldn't normally factor into like the cash flow number. But I kind of look at these videos as the quick napkin math. And my goal with this is for anyone that's new to real estate or new to Airbnb, I want to be as transparent as possible about all the expenses that are going to come in. And so when we have big expenses like a hot tub breaking or something, that's still cash that we are having to pay that month to take care of the problem. And so in these kind of reports, I just really like lumping everything together and looking at a total, monthly view. I think maybe at the end of the year, I'll do another video where we break it down with standard accounting practices. So I'm going to break this down just with bookings and then like our cash flow number after all the expenses. So in December, which was our first month, we put our profile up Thanksgiving Day weekend, so at the very, very end of November. So December was really our first full month on the platform. We had bookings totaling $5,430. And after all of our expenses, we were actually negative a little over $1,700. And, we had a few minor repairs. We were still getting our sea legs under us. And so we were happy with that number. In January, we had bookings of 6,614, and our cash flow was actually negative $3,300 again. That's a really interesting video. If you guys remember, go back and watch it. But we had our hot tub break, and that was really heartbreaking. But again, we were learning a lot, and we were still having bookings coming in. So all good. February is when things started to get really exciting for us. So we had $9,487 worth of bookings. And then after our expenses, we had a cash flow of $3,563, which was really, really cool. And in that month, we really didn't have anything major break. We were starting to get longer bookings, and we were also getting the hang of what our nightly rate should really be. In March, which was spring break, peak season down in Florida, we had $14,511 worth of bookings, and our cash flow was $8,411. That month, we were just on top of the world. It was the best month ever. I loved making that revenue video because it just felt like that first glimmer of success for us in real estate. It was really, really, really exciting. And in March, one of the key factors to that success was our bookings were a lot longer. We were having guests stay with us for 4, 5, 6, 7 days. And our nightly rate was also a lot higher because it was peak season. And the other key is we didn't have anything major break. Now in April, we had $8,341 in bookings, and our cash flow was $1,903. Nothing major happened in April. I didn't do a specific video breaking down the April numbers because I knew I would kind of do this 6-month update, and we didn't have anything really major happen that month. And so it just kind of felt like I was listing the same expenses over and over again. We were at a 92% occupancy rate. So our occupancy rate was really, really good. Nightly rate was increasing, but we did have a few minor repairs. We had to call the HVAC company because the house just wasn't cooling down, and it turns out we needed new refrigerant in the air conditioner, so we had to have that serviced. And our Amazon and Instacart purchases were a little bit higher. We added some new beach chairs to the house. We needed a few more pool towels, And so overall, our expenses were kind of up. And so you can see where that is reflected in our cash flow number at the end of the month. May was kind of a drama filled month. I made a video on that where I so lovingly referred to it as our hell week as hosts. And we actually did really well with bookings. We had a 96% occupancy in May. So we were full most of the month. We had a lot of guest parties coming through there. And we had a little over $9,000 in bookings. But if you go watch that video, May is the month where we had huge issues with our toilets continuing to clog. We also had some issues with our washing machine not draining. After $9,000 worth of bookings and all of that kind of stress, we only cash flowed $640, which, is real estate. It's the name of the game. And now that we're a little bit removed from that month, it's like, okay, we can be positive. It's all good. There are going to be ups, there are going to be downs. We're in this for the long haul. But man, like that was a lot of work to only come out of it with $640 for the month. Okay, so let's talk about what we have learned through these 6 months. When I look back over the 6 months, I think one thing my husband and I are doing well is the hospitality side of the business. We're really quick to respond to guests. We made Superhost back in April. We're getting really great reviews, and that's allowing more people and more bookings to come through. And so I'm really proud of us for that. I want to make sure that we take time to kind of like pat ourselves on the back, realize that this is a new business, a new skill set. And I think when you look at guest reviews and what we've been able to do, like I feel really good about learning the hospitality side. There's always more to learn, but I feel like we're doing a good job with that. And one big piece that goes into that is communication with our cleaners. So it's really important, this kind of goes without saying, that you find cleaners that are going to do a really great job. But I think one thing we've learned is even if you have a cleaner that's really on top of it, you still need to kind of have boots on the ground every once in a while to go in and make sure that things aren't getting missed, or that like you didn't leave something off of your checklist. That was a big thing in the beginning. They were doing a great job, but there were just little things like, maybe wiping down closet door panels that are painted black and tend to get dust in the louvers. We never told them to do that, and it just wasn't on the checklist. But then as you go through the house and you start to notice things, you go, oh, we got to add that. So having that constant communication with your cleaners is really important. There have been other times where I've gone in on a Sunday to drop something off after the cleaners have been there, and I've noticed little things like maybe they weren't cleaning, around the window seals, behind the blinds as well as they should be. And so it's just a relationship where you're communicating that. It's mutual respect. It's not like we're going to fire our cleaners because they missed one little thing, but it does help to just make sure that you're kind of communicating back and forth. And it does help that we're fairly close to our property. It's not easy for us to go pop over there every single week, but we can drive down there if we need to. We do want to be able to manage something completely remotely. I would love to have a cabin in the mountains. Nashville is one of my favorite cities. I would love to have a place there, but for our first property and even like our second Airbnb, I really think we're going to try and stick closer to home, because it does just help to have boots on the ground in the beginning. That's at least been our learning. Doesn't mean you can't, but that's what has made us feel more comfortable. When I look at the 6 months as a whole, we've been really lucky that we've had really great guests. We really haven't had any like huge problems. So I think what we've learned from that is it's really important to set expectations with guests. It's really important to be able to walk away from bookings that may not be a good fit for your house and the way you want to host. And then we also don't have instant book turned on. We have this setting where guests have to write a little note about why they are coming to the area. I know that when you have instant booking turned on, it helps you with the algorithm, but we haven't had a huge issue with getting bookings. And there have been so many times that opening that line of communication early when someone's about to book the place has just really, really helped. So a couple of examples that I can think of. We had one guy where he had mold in his house, and he needed a place to stay, and he was having like extreme allergic reactions to this. And so he was asking us if we could only clean the house with like water and no cleaning products because he was having like really bad asthma issues. And it hurt my heart because I wanted to help him, but we were just like, how would we clean sheets without any soap? Like, it just felt like we wouldn't be able to present the type of property that we wanted to. And the last thing we wanted to have happen is he gets in there, it's not clean because we're only cleaning with water, and then he's upset and leaves us a bad review. We even looked up like natural cleaners at Target to see if that might be easier on his asthma, but he was really adamant that it just had to be water. And so we just didn't feel like we could offer him the level of quality and service that we wanted to. And so we just ended up saying like, we don't feel like this is a good fit. And so we, passed on some business, but I think in the long run, that probably saved us a few headaches. We also had a guest that told us when she booked that it was going to be her grandpa's 90th birthday and the family was going to come over. And our house sleeps 8. She registered for 8 people. So we're like, okay, cool. And in our minds, we're thinking, okay, it's going to be grandpa and maybe her and a spouse, a couple kids, maybe an aunt and uncle, 8 people. There you go. No big deal. Well, as it got closer to the date, she started asking questions and she said, oh, I realize the house only sleeps 8 and that's how many people are going to be actually sleeping at the house. But would it be okay if we had 20 people over for the actual party? We're just going to do hot dogs on the grill, have cake and ice cream, family event, really low key. And, maybe that would have been okay, but our house isn't that big. It's a small 3-bedroom and we don't have parking on the street for like 10 to 12 cars. And throughout this 6 months, we've been really careful to be good neighbors and to be hosts in that regard too. So even though she's asking us these questions like 2 weeks before the party, which means it's going to be really hard for us to rebook those dates, and we would be losing money, it just was one of those things where it didn't feel like the juice was worth the squeeze. Because if you've got 20 people crammed in that little house, we might have neighbors that are upset with us. There's more risk of damage. Like, I don't even know how 20 people would fit in that place. And so we just told her, oh, when you booked, like we said, we host 8. That's what we were expecting. We say right in our rules that we don't allow like big parties or anything. So yeah, this may not be a good fit. You can't have 20 people over. And so she ended up canceling and she was totally fine and sweet about it and she understood. But that was just another instance where setting those expectations, making sure you have that communication with guests, and knowing when to pass on something is going to eliminate some headaches for you, because even doing all that, there will be plenty of headaches. So don't invite trouble, I guess, is my point. You're probably wondering if I'm going to touch on how much money we've made and our very, very high expenses. And yes, overall in the 6 months, one of the things that has been the most surprising to me is how high our expenses are. And just, you can make a lot of money in bookings and things can go well, but like if you have a couple of clogged toilets or something, or an appliance breaks, it really, really eats into your profitability. So it's just something that we're keeping in the back of our mind when we're looking for our next Airbnb property. It's something really important to consider when you see these videos on YouTube and TikTok where people are talking about how much money they're making. You can see from our bookings that, yeah, you can make good money. And it is really exciting when it happens. We've had exciting months like that, but then you have months like May where you do all that work, you have great bookings, and there's lots of expenses to go with it. So I like talking about the exciting stuff on here. Who doesn't? But I always want to make sure I'm transparent with this so that you're getting a really clear idea, and I guess everyone's experience could be totally different, but I'm just trying to give you a really clear idea of what our experience and journey has been with this house. On top of all the expenses that have popped up since we've opened back in December, we bought the house last July and there were a ton of things that we had to fix that we weren't expecting. And I made a video on that. You can go check it out. Yeah, that's been a surprise, just how many things can break in a property like this and how it really eats into your profitability. But I will say this, while there are some expenses that are more likely because you're in the short-term rental business and you have more people going in and out of the house, like the toilet being clogged. This is kind of how we're starting to look at it. So while you look at months like May, where you do all this work and you have great bookings and then you make a couple $100 a month, we have a long-term real estate property and we just had to replace the air conditioning on that one. And, cash flow on long-term rentals is much less than short-term rentals in general. And so, the cash flow on that property is under $1,000 a month. Do the math there on replacing an air conditioning unit. So I guess my point is you are going to have big expenses with any kind of property, any kind of real estate. So you're going to have things that are going to break for long term and short term. But at least with short term, we do have those high booking numbers to kind of offset that. So it's yet to be seen. We're 6 months in. We're going to, continue to evaluate this. But for right now, we're still feeling okay about it. We look at real estate as a long-term investment. And then on top of just looking at like the monthly cash flow numbers, we also have to consider that there are big tax benefits with real estate and this property will continue to appreciate. So there's other value to it besides just that monthly number that's coming in. So on kind of the same line of money, one thing that's really surprised me is how hard the business can be, but then how easy it can be at the same time, which I know is a really confusing statement. So here's what I mean. We've been talking about all the hard stuff that can happen, all the things that can break. But what has also surprised me is that there will be times, weeks even, where you have guests check in and other than them saying like, thank you for you sending in the check-in instructions and maybe like one other question, you may not hear from them for like their entire stay. And that happens quite often. And it almost makes me like a little bit anxious, or it's a weird feeling because you'll bring in like $3,000 and you had to send like a couple of text messages. Now, that is not to say that Airbnb is easy because you've been hearing about all the other stuff that's going on, but it's definitely pointed out to me that I have some money mindset shifts that I need to make within myself, because I think me feeling anxious or weird about $3,000 coming in for sending a few texts is kind of a W-2 mindset of trading time for money. Whereas I need to be looking at it as, okay, there was a lot of work that goes into bringing that booking in, as I well know, that we weren't getting paid for. And so it's just a different way of thinking. But yeah, it's really, really hard. But then there's also times where it's not, and it's a weird feeling to have that money kind of flowing in. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's been a thought that's been on my mind when I think back over the 6 months. It's pretty cool. I like it. And then the last big thing I would say is figuring out your pricing, managing your inventory, looking at your length of stay is really, really crucial to profitability, because you can see in December, January, when we were just really getting our sea legs under us, you can see how that's reflected in the numbers. And then when you get to February and March and we started having longer bookings and our nightly rate was going up, that had a really positive effect on our profitability. And so what we're learning going forward is we've had a 2-night minimum on our profile. And moving forward in like peak season months, we're going to extend that to like 4 or 5 days, because what was happening is we would get people that were like checking in Thursday night, checking out Sunday, and then you're left with like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, which are really hard days to kind of sell. And you'd have to lower the nightly rate. And so that just really eats into it. And so we're getting better with our pricing and just realizing that managing that inventory and that calendar and is one of those key skills to making this work. But we're really excited to keep learning. I think we're just going to keep getting better and better at that as the months go on. And I still think it was the right thing to launch our profile when we did. It was better to take action, jump in, and just really start learning. But now it's kind of time to look at how we've performed, reassess, make some tweaks, and continue to get better. So yeah, that was the first 6 months on Airbnb. If this video was helpful, please drop me a like and subscribe. And until next time, bye guys.